Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. This is Jessop's Journal. It's time to sign into Jessop's Journal.
Thank you. I'd love to. Oh, you got the pen and everything. That was fun.
Hi, I'm Doug Jessop. Welcome to this episode of Jessop's Journal. With me today, renowned artist Susan N. Jarvis. But she wants me to call her Suzy, so we'll go with that. So Suzy, great to see you.
Thanks
so much for coming on. I met you because you are an incredible artist, and I've been interviewing a bunch of artists, and I kind of have this little phrase that it's kind of like small lake city, and you happen to know some people that I know, okay? So number one, I got to give a shout out. Back in college, up at Utah State University, I roomed with a bunch of artists, and there was this one guy by the name of Ondre Pettingill. So you know Ondre.
Ondre is a wonderful artist. His landscapes are beautiful. He's looser than I am and a bit more contemporary, but he's also a wonderful person and a very hard worker.
Oh yeah, and he likes his kitties. Kiki. That was the cat at our place. But there's another artist that I just interviewed by the name of Al Rounds. Okay, let me guess. Do you know him too?
I do. Al is a very sensitive, wonderful, genuine person. His art is refined and beautiful, and I really like Al, and he's just a sweetheart.
Okay, now I'm going to see if we can get a trifecta. Okay, the other artist that I interviewed is a gentleman by the name of Greg Newbold. Okay, he's the guy that does my charcoal art and all that stuff that you see at the beginning of this series and everything. Do you by chance know Greg?
I do know Greg, and I admire his work.
Of course you do, right?
Well, not as well as the other two, but Greg's work is so unique to him, and he has a style, and it's warm and wonderful, and it's good to have fellow artists.
Yeah, well, now we're going to talk about you, okay? And before we jump into your art, I want to find out a little bit more about who you are and how you came to be, if you will. So number one, where'd you grow up?
I grew up here in Salt Lake City until the age of 21, and I moved away for 20 years and came back.
Okay, so when you were a kid, what were kind of your experiences in the art world? I mean, were you on the, did you have the refrigerator art, or what's the story?
Well, my parents always supplied me with pencils, crayons, paper. I didn't start painting, and I was number 6 of 7 children. So, you know, we were an average family, and whenever we went to church, we couldn't take toys or anything, but partway through the meeting, my mother would pass out paper and pencils, and we could draw quietly.
Okay. Dare I ask what you drew?
People.
Oh, really?
Backs of heads, people falling asleep, people's shoes.
Do any of those drawings, did any of those survive?
Yes.
Serious?
I do. I have them in sketchbooks.
Oh, that is cool. That is cool.
And then just in elementary school, and you know, for holidays, making Halloween decorations and things. Art, you know, I jumped at the chance. I just loved the creative feeling. It was calming. I would color, and it was like therapy.
And now a little birdie told me that you're not just an artist, but you are also on the creative side, that you're a musician.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
Yes, both my parents were musicians. Dad played the Norwegian accordion, mother played the piano, but they had no training. They made sure all of us were trained. All my sisters, I took piano for 10 years, and then later my children and husband, we had a bluegrass band. I have a tin whistle collection, and I always volunteered in the children's schools for music and art.
So what was the name of the band? I got to hear more about this one.
Well, at first it was all adults in the band in California, and we could only start our practice at 9 p.m. because we all had children. When the kids were in bed, we played usually until around midnight. So the band was up till midnight. I know.
Yeah. Did any of your kids end up getting into the band?
You know, I would notice up above there was a little balcony with a railing, and they would listen to the music and watch. And as the adults had to leave the band for various reasons, you know, I could fill in for the fiddle, Mom. I could do it. I know it. And so one by one, we eventually, it was just our family.
I got to think that'd be kind of fun.
It was so much fun. Because they started from nothing. I could do the violin, and I was surprised at how quickly kids learned.
Was there a kind of a aha moment when you were a kid where you go, okay, I am an artist. This is what I do?
Not until graduation from high school. It was a tug of war because I sang in groups and I performed. I used to sing at the Heather restaurant and play the piano at night as a job. So they were like one and the same. As long as I could have this self-expression, whether it was painting, coloring, playing the piano, singing, it was one thing for me. It was expression.
So what kind of music did you listen to as a kid then?
Everything. I didn't have a band that I liked, but I had individual numbers. My parents had albums of West Side Story, Leonard Bernstein, South Pacific. My older siblings listened to the Everly Brothers and the Kingston Trio, and I liked Carole King and Three Dog Night, and the neighborhood liked Led Zeppelin. So it was all, it was whatever. I loved rhythm, but I also loved classical music. It was calming to me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I know, it was funny because when I was growing up, you know, my mother listened to classical music, my stepfather listened to yodel country music, and so, you know, when I got into the radio broadcast, and of course, you don't like what your parents like, you know, so, you know, what was my first radio job? Yeah, it was classical, I admit it. It's like, okay, because, you know, because I knew the difference between Shostakovich and Chopin, you know, so it's like,
there you go.
So what tipped the scale from music to art?
Time. There are X amount of hours in the day. And there was a time, maybe my sophomore year in high school, where I had to choose how to spend my time. And I thought, which of these two things could I not live without? And it was art.
There was an experience with your dad. Tell us about that.
Just before I started at the University of Utah, my dad asked me what I was going to major in. And he said, why don't you decide and tell me at breakfast? Okay. So I come into the kitchen, Mother's flipping pancakes, Dad's at the table reading the paper. And he said, did you decide? And I said, I did. He said, what's it going to be? And I said, I'm going to be an artist.
How'd that go over?
Well, my dad, and he's quiet, he set the paper down and stood up, took out his wallet, and started throwing money on the floor, saying, you might as well throw your money away. You could be a secretary or a teacher or a nurse. And I just held really still. My eyes were brimming with tears, but nothing spilled out. I just was quiet. And in that moment, I had to be an artist, and I couldn't even consider those other things. And that was the epiphany for me. And later, of course, he appreciated my efforts. He respected me as I became a successful artist.
So what's a successful artist to you? How do you define that?
There are two gauges I use. One is the economic success where you don't have to supplement, you know, with a day job. If you can make it work for you, you are a successful business person. The other is following your heart and seeing the rewards that come from being intrinsically who you are.
Now, I've noticed some of your artwork, and there's a couple different categories. And let's just start with what I call the still life ones, okay? So there's got to be a story behind this. For some reason, you apparently like eggs a lot. What is the deal with the eggs?
Eggs just are a common object, and when I paint eggs, I paint them bigger than life size so that they are uncommon because they're common. But I paint colored eggs, natural colored eggs, not the white ones. And if you just did a painting of eggs, it's just eggs. But if you title it and manipulate it, there's always a story. For example, if you have all different colored of eggs in a 12 carton egg holder, I call it mixed family. Then it has a meaning.
Yeah.
If you have all golden and red eggs and there's one big green one sitting in the middle, I call that the only one. Or you could say adopted. But eggs are like people. They have stories. They have individual personalities. You have big eggs, round eggs, skinny eggs, dotted, freckled eggs. And they're interesting. And then when you hold an egg, so my painting, I use my senses. I smell, I feel things. Eggs are smooth and flawless. If when you paint an egg, there's one little brush stroke that's off, it looks like a dimple. They're smooth. And then you have the nubby carton, you know? I love eggs.
And then I noticed that there's one painting that also had a little feather in it.
Yes, because it's the personality. It got in there. It was from the chicken.
Now, I got to ask, do you own chickens, or have you ever owned chickens?
No.
Okay.
But several of my friends do. And Dean, my friend Dean, raises exotic chickens. And so he blew out the inside of the eggs so that they're hollow, but all these colors, lavender, pale green, and I have several cartons of those eggs from my friend Dean.
There's a series that I absolutely love, and it's the Seashells. And then I have had a jar of seashells for years, you know, at my house. And I saw this one, I'm going, oh, Suzy's been at my house apparently. So what's the story behind all the seashells?
Seashells also have stories. You have the crispy, rigid, textured seashells, and then you have one just like it that has been tumbled in the sand and pummeled and smoothed. And it looks like a rock that has been tumbled and is shiny and really pretty. Seashells are different. I've traveled all over the world, and I have shells from different beaches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are beaches with little tiny white shells, and down in Mexico, the big flat sand dollars. Starfish from Southern California. And again, shells, you know, at first they stink because there's matter on them, but it's the smell of necrosing tissue and salt. And it brings back the sound of the waves and the sand, and I hold it and I paint it and I look at it. And it's a multi-sense thing for me, seashells.
So you did a lot of the still lifes, but then I also noticed that you have some incredible people and figures.
Thank you.
And there's one thing that I've also noticed, and I don't know if you do this on purpose, but it seems like there's almost always some kind of sense of motion. I mean, like, for example, you got this one with the rain, okay, and you know the kids looking down and everything, but still you can kind of just feel the rain dripping down, you know, and then you've got this cute little girl, this little redhead, just, you know, joyfully running through a field, you know, and, you know, this, you can just kind of feel the sun basking, okay? What's the idea when you do figures?
Figures are my favorite thing to paint. They don't sell as well as, say, still life or landscape, but they're my favorite thing. I am a people person, but I don't like formal portraits. I like to indicate the personality of the subject a little more in what they wear, in how they move, in the mood and the feeling behind the painting. So she's got drips, you know, it's really arty. She has blue nail polish and it's a little edgy. This girl is running freely and the spots are flying off her dress and she's a dreamer, you know. So thank you for the compliment. People are my favorite things to paint.
Now I noticed red hair, and you've got a little red hair. Total guess. Could this kid somehow be related to you?
Yes.
Okay.
She is my granddaughter. And so is this strawberry redhead.
Fun. Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, and my kids get tired of hearing this, but if you could just skip being a parent and go straight to grandparent, it's so much more fun.
Oh, and easier.
Yeah, yeah, so you can get them all juiced up and see you, bye. So you've done the stills and you've done the figures, but then I've also noticed some landscapes, and there was this one picture that you got an award, and it was just stunning, the colors and the reflection in the sky in Spanish Fork.
Yes,
Okay.
that is a painting that is 8 feet by 3.5 feet.
Whoa.
And my son, who lives in Spanish Fork, wanted a painting for his couch. His friend took a drone shot, Brett Bills, and it was spectacular. And lighting is everything. Lighting is everything on any subject. So I painted that, and I used to be a plein air painter.
What's plein air mean?
It means take your easel out on location. What you're looking at this mountain over here, and you paint it right then and there, and you have about a 3-hour window,
Okay.
and then your light is gone, And I did landscapes and plein air painting, but now I'm a princess. I don't like spiders, hot temperatures, rain, wind, and I've had a couple stories, a moose snuck up behind me, things like that.
Serious?
And I'm like, yes.
Oh, okay.
I heard this twig snap and I went, oh, stress. But now I'm a studio painter. So I do landscapes if they're a commission and someone wants one.
Okay, well, now that's the other thing, and I've asked every single artist that I've interviewed, okay, there's, for lack of a better term, the ones where you get to pick and choose whatever the heck you're doing, those are yours, okay? And then there's the commission work where somebody says, hi, I'm gonna give you some money, I want you to do this, okay? I don't know if easier is the right word, but do you have a preference, and if so, why?
When I receive a commission, it's the opportunity for me to paint a picture of what someone else is seeing in their head. That is more challenging than painting what I want.
Oh yeah, because you got to become a mind reader.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you do it incrementally and you say, give me some photographs, okay, and you choose one, and then you do the first stage and say, what do you think? Is there anything you want me to change? And then by the time you get to the end, there aren't any surprises. And you have walked them through the process, and they're really happy with the commission.
You've also got galleries, that have your art. Just out of curiosity, because one creative to another, it's like, okay, you've got, if I remember, there's like a gallery, I want to say in Southern California, I can't remember.
In Carmel, California.
Okay, now Carmel is, that's a hoity-toity, really beautiful place, okay? So when you walk in to this and you've got other people, they don't know who you are, okay? And you see it and you see your stuff on the wall and they're just going, oh, look at this. What's running through your head?
Well, over the years, I used to have tender feel bads. If someone was outside of my studio, and we had open studio, so you could hear people in the hallway, and they were saying, oh, don't go in there. It's horrible. I would go home and cry my eyes out. Or if I heard someone say, oh, look at this, it's stunning, I would stand a little taller. You know what? Truth be told, I don't care anymore. I just go, this is the coolest gallery. They're so friendly here. I love it. It's intimate and wonderful. And I pay attention to what they say so that I can refine my work, but not very much. I'm just who I am.
It's more of if it's good enough for Suzy, it's a good enough for everybody else.
I have a high standard, and once I put a piece out there, I just release it, and I don't. I'm not possessive of my work anymore. It's gone. It's good enough for me. It'll make somebody happy.
There you go.
That's it.
Well, that's cool. Now, talking about making people happy, you have a particular gallery, I don't know if it's a gallery, well, a studio place where you are painting now and teaching. So tell me about this.
So Workshop SLC is a place, a building with 6 other artists in residence. Then they have a huge teaching room with all north windows, and they sponsor workshops and classes. That is where I teach. And art is a learned skill. Nobody's born painting, So if when someone looks at you and goes, oh, you're talented, you have the gift, what they're really saying, they don't know this, is that way early, age 2 or 3, I started coloring and drawing. And by the time I got to the 1st grade, I was a couple of years ahead of my peers, and it looks like I was gifted and talented. It was just I put the hours in, and somebody gave me the supplies, right? Mm-hmm. So teaching for me is giving people the tools so they can create and express themselves. And whenever they say, oh, I'm not gifted, I want to say, sign up for a class and learn. It's a learned skill.
So what kind of art do you do? When I interviewed Al, he started with oil, okay? And then he's realizing, for him at least, that watercolor was really where he wanted to be. When my mother was a painter, when she was younger, she used to use the palette knife. Love the palette knife, okay? So what's your preferred, for lack of a better term, method or style of painting?
I do illustrated journaling in watercolor when I travel because it's easy and I can still create. I have tried acrylics and they're okay. Oil paint, to me, sorry, Al, is the creme de la creme. Uh-huh. It's so smooth and buttery, and you can blend and you can scrape it off and come back the next day and still manipulate it. It's my favorite. I am a traditional painter, meaning it's very academic. I am a realist. However, I'm a contemporary realist because of the shape of my work. The palette, meaning the colors I use, they're light backgrounds generally, not like Rembrandt or dark traditional things. And the subject, I either have to be on the eye level of my subject or straight above looking down, and that's very contemporary. And then I like it simple and clean. So when you reduce my work in a photo, it looks like photorealism, and it isn't. When you see it, the live piece, the edges are soft. It's a little more sensitive than that.
Wow. What advice would you give to someone that is dabbling with art and trying to figure out if they want to be or are an artist?
Draw every day for a month and ask yourself how you feel inside, having had that creative expression. If it made a difference in your life, continue and expand to other mediums.
Very cool. The name of this series is called Jessop's Journal. The folks at Rustico make my journals, and it's got all these kind of marks and everything, because to me, life comes with marks and life comes with bluntly scars, okay? And it's kind of who you are. It's kind of like that little feathered thing in that egg you were talking about.
Right.
So I like to ask this as the last question for everybody. So, okay, got to get official, okay? Suzy, I'm gonna go back to the renowned artist, Susan Jarvis. How do you want to leave your mark?
I want my work to be remembered because it lifted people. I paint what makes me feel happy, light, expressive. And when I'm long gone, if my work continues to do that, that will be a pleasant memory. And also, painting for me is a vehicle so people can feel good about themselves. And it forces you to like who you are, because you're going to get really bad comments and really wonderful comments. So I want to be remembered as giving that gift to other artists, and to just have my work lift people.
Well, Suzy, thank you so much for coming on to Jessop's Journal. There's a couple other people we need to thank. Of course, there's Rustico, the guys that make my journal. Clear nasal spray. Here's a strange question for you. Okay, you think about washing your hands, but have you really thought about this? Washing your nose. Not kidding. It's really good stuff. And then, of course, you've got the folks at Five Wise. They make the hand sanitizer, and yeah, they make adult beverages as well. Of course, Taylor Cooperative makes my clothes, and don't forget JW Custom Hats. Here's the thing I want people to remember. Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. And sometimes just sometimes they're told through art with people like this, Susan Jarvis. With another entry into Jessop's Journal, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.